This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it's time for the Intentionality Gurus with Candace Pollock. And all I can say, Candace, is that I'm hoping that today's show will bring me down a couple levels. Like many people who may be listening to the podcast this week that are coming off of Thanksgiving, where maybe they spent with friends, relatives, and as nice as that is, sometimes it's just really nice to take that deep breath and say, it's so nice to be home alone. At least that's how I'm feeling today. And we're going to be talking about the art of forcing functions and getting what we want. Boy, I can think of a
So what
lot
do
of
you think
things
a
I want.
forcing function is?
Pardon?
What do you think a forcing function is?
I have no idea.
Well,
Forcing.
it's a term we often use in business or even manufacturing, and it can be a set of circumstances. It can be done intentionally or unintentionally. A lot of times it's in the context we're going to discuss today, it's often unintentional, and this is where we can flip the switch and see the fork in the road and change our perspective of it. But basically, it's normally perceived as some kind of obstacle getting in our way to what we want and some outcome we want. And it could be a time limit. It could be a other limit, like having to fill in the little bubbles on, standardized tests
Right?
and having to do it a certain way. It couldn't be basically having to, I did a Spartan race years and years ago in order to get a certification. And that was a forcing function. It forced me to do other things in order to do that event. And while I considered myself reasonably fit at the time, it's a series of 20 or 21 physical obstacles, like climbing under barbed wire, in mud, all in mud, and wading in what was chest deep water for me, whereas for a lot of the guys, it came up to their mid chest
Yeah.
or not even their mid chest, their waist. And then that was the first event, which meant that I was like freezing cold, and it kind of did me in for the rest of it. But the one that really did me in was we had to leap from a muddy platform out over a mud pit and grab metal rings like you would see on maybe a swing set or like in some competition.
Yeah.
And the platform was slippery, muddy, and the rings were totally muddy from people having fallen in the mud and grabbing.
Right.
And I grabbed those and immediately could not hold on and fell into the mud. Again, that it was up to my hips, and had to find my way out. So that forced me to do a lot of thinking about that kind of a race. The tagline is, you'll know at the end, more or less, like you'll have this big epiphany at the end. And the epiphany I had was I could have phoned in the epiphany. I didn't need to do this race to come up with that. But anyway, it was a little sophomoric for me, but for other people, I imagine it's more transformative. All right. So it can be anything like that, having to have like a limit on 200 words. I had to submit something recently, and it couldn't be no more than 200 words, which, in this day and age, and for my daytime occupation, is a hard thing to do.
Right.
So what kind of forcing functions do you see in your life?
Well,
Because we all have them.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot, but recently, I started this newsletter and I read that I could add music to the newsletter. And I thought, oh, this is going to be real easy. It's going to tell me insert here and whatever. Except in order to do this, I had to read a manual online to actually understand what I was going to be doing. I mean, it's true video editing, or it's almost like creating a video newsletter. And it was like, is this really what I want to do? And I do want to do it. So now I have to learn how to do it, not just have it come easily.
So that's a perfect example. And so what energy do you have around it in terms of how you feel about it? Or when
Um,
you first realized what you would have to do?
when I,
What were your
yeah,
thoughts?
I didn't want to do it at that point. It was like, forget it. I'm not going to do this. Um, and one of my business mentors called me, to see how I was doing with it. And that was my first reaction. I'm not going to do it. And he said, once you know how to do it, it'll be like falling off a log. He
Or
said,
maybe off some muddy rings into a mud pit. Yes,
yeah,
okay.
exactly, exactly. And I said, yes, but all the time I have to put into it. And he goes, well, it's your choice. Do you want something a little bit different for your mailing list? And that was the key. It was like, okay, I'm going to have to take a deep breath. I'm going to have to find a day to go through all this and then practice it. And so it's on my calendar now that I have devoted one full day to do this. Because if not, then, you know, I've worried about something that probably I can learn and not worry about anymore.
Yeah, so that's a great example. And so the mindset shift from, the initial resistance we often can have, like, oh dang, I have to do this thing and I thought it was going to be easier, all the stuff that goes on in life. And this can be regarding our relationships, this can be about, our work sphere, it can be about our personal life sphere. And so the idea is that the initial impression is this is an obstacle, this is something I have to overcome in order to get on the other side. And then all of the doubts that we might have in terms of our ability to do it. Me in some respects. I'm an early adopter of technology, but a total idiot when it comes to how it works. It's like my car. I put the key in the ignition and I turn it, and then it's supposed to work. But if it doesn't, then I'm really up a creek. Technology is worse in that regard. So I've got a lot of things that I can't use because I can't figure it out. I don't have a live-in tech person like somebody I know that might host a podcast. And so, it can be, we can allow these things to defeat us or to make us stronger in
Right.
essence. And where else have you seen a forcing function in your life, maybe in your personal life?
Well, going back to when I was in school, the thought of doing homework to really gain the additional knowledge so I could do well on a test, uh, that always used to, that was my biggest obstacle. It's like, I, I want to already know something. So the fact that I have to go and do something to make sure that I know it has always been my obstacle.
In what way? Say more.
Um, it just seems like it's one more step. Why do I have to do one more step to get to the other side? And as I've gotten older, I understand it and I'm better at it, but I still look at things like that initially as, oh, I don't want to do it. How can I get away from it? How can I get around it? And typically you can't if it's something that you want to accomplish.
Yeah, and I've often said, and this will date me, and I'll update it. But in the old days, I would say I just wanted like a CD-ROM where I could insert it and download the information. I
Yep.
don't want to have to slog through everything. Not what you want to hear from, say, a physician or particularly a surgeon, those kinds of things. But now the analogy is I just need a little USB port so that I can upload or a
Right.
cloud database where I can download things from there. So my version of that forcing function is, I got bitten by the curiosity bug way early, and it's hard for me not to just keep exploring the margins on things, keep pushing the margins and saying, what's the done criteria here? And so the forcing function for me is to force myself to decide how will I recognize when I'm done and not continue to spend time on things? Because with the internet and everything else, I can, find out about, well, there was something or other, um, a name that was used, a Scott name that was originally used in 1207. It's like, why did I go off on that tangent? So I need guardrails for my attention. And it's gotten better, but it's still something that I have to be mindful of. So often with forcing functions, we look at them initially as a drag, something that it's forcing us, and that has bad connotations, but it can actually act like a chute or a runway, or I call it guardrails, to keep our attention on what matters to us. And it could be you do Cal Newport talks about deep work time and scheduling time just to work on deeper things, presumably on some particular project or an aspect of a project. And the other thing, it could be deadlines. I think I've shared on this program in the past that way back when I was in college, actually it might have been late high school, I don't remember, but where I grew up in New York, our house was on a mountainside. And so when we approached the house, we could walk up the front steps, which were quite steep, or we could drive the car into the garage and then come up the basement stairs to the main living area. And so I started playing this game, who knows why, just because I like to make games of things, where I would try and make it from the man door between the garage and the basement over to the basement steps that go up to the house. And I wanted to make it to the bottom first step before the door slammed behind me. My mother really appreciated the slamming. And over time, I think when I was finally like 28, I had gotten to the point where whenever I came home to visit, I could run to up the basement steps, through the mudroom, through the kitchen, and just make it into the dining room before the door slammed. That's how good I got. I also knew how to like not slam the door quickly, or to make it kind of fly open and then close. And it was just a forcing function, this stupid game. But it makes it easier if we can be thinking in those terms when we're looking at an obstacle. Okay, how can I gamify this? How can I make this fun? So where might that show up in your experience?
Geez, I'm sure it does show up somewhere. I guess there would probably be more for me when I'm working out. So like when I ride the bike at night, I have to have something else that I'm doing while I'm riding the bike to make it, through that 30 to 40-minute time period that I've given myself, without even thinking that 30 to 40 minutes have gone by. And so I used to sit and watch TV while I was riding the bike, but that's not good for me anymore because I can sense the time, and it's like, oh, I've only gone 5 minutes. Oh, I've only gone 10 minutes, God, when is the show going to be over? My 30 minutes.
Right, yeah.
But now what I do is I take that time to read my email so that I have no sense of time, and I'm actually going through important stuff. And before I realize it, a lot of times my husband will finally say to me, when are you going to stop making noise over there? And I'll look over and I've gone 40, 50 minutes. But if I don't have something that intentional to do, that bike ride feels like I've gone 30 minutes and I've only gone a minute.
I love it. I love it. And you reminded me of an experience I had just accidentally years ago. I had a training in a particular exercise thing that's coupled with affirmations. And there were certain routines we had to learn, and it was a lot of memorization to music. And the music was always like really jazzy. It was just really cool. I mean, it started out slow and then it got jazzy and then it got slow again. And I had to leave my car at a place to get something fixed. So I took the bus and I was listening to the routine on my earbuds. Um, and just, the music was just like, I couldn't sit still. And so here I am on the bus, like doing everything I can. And to not be obvious, like I had fleas or something,
Right.
moving around. And I got off the bus and it was like a block and a half to 2 blocks to my house. Same thing. I had a hard time. We used to call my dad swivel hips because, sometimes you'd catch him in the supermarket and he would just be like, grooving to whatever was on the music, and so on. He just would embarrass us, but he loved to dance. And so anyway, I loved it. And then I would get into the house and I can remember sweeping down and picking up my dog and like dancing with him. And then I got some chores done. So I did that intentionally for a long time because I didn't want to stop listening to the music. And it tended to be like a 45-minute program, maybe an hour. And so it was, but like you were saying, I wasn't paying attention to the time because the experience that was, the game I was making it of listening to this and getting some chores done made them more fun. And
Right.
the dog was a little terrified, like what that is going on. But it was irresistible, is my point. So for today's conversation, I wanted to explore how, we often look at life that, there's resistance, there's something pushing against us, something getting in our way, something that is bringing us down, that keeps us, defeating us from getting certain things done. And we can look at those as forcing functions. Um, but forcing functions can actually force us to be more creative. What's another way to approach this so-called obstacle and look at it as an opportunity? And it can be really creative. I'm in a program. When am I not in a program? But I was in a program and I was talking to my accountability buddy, and we decided that the ways we had been successful are making, games out of things. We both did that independently of each other. And so we created a little game board for this program that we're in together, that we're buddied up in. And it is so much fun. I mean, literally, it's almost like Candyland. We have like little boxes and little tokens that we can move forward with the game. And even though I was totally capable of following a list of tasks that we had to complete, the game just puts a different element on it. So, what would you recommend to listeners in terms of how they bring forcing functions into it and how they approach forcing functions in their life?
See, I never thought of it as a game, but I like using that word. I think that's helpful. But what what I find, um, one of the things I really don't like to do is grocery shop. And I guess I've sort of made it into a game when I go into the grocery store because now when I go in, I think of myself as being an influencer as I'm looking at foods I'm going to buy.
Hmm.
And, you know, if I'm going to buy this, how am I going to use it? What is good behind it? How can I share this with somebody on a podcast or in just a conversation? And I
Hmm.
find that I'm number one, buying the right things at the grocery store because I'm doing this, but I don't dislike going like I used to. In the past it was like, I know I'm gonna go get lettuce and tomatoes and this and that. And now it's like I'm gonna look and I'm going to create this story sort of in my mind as to how I'm going to use this and who can I share it with. And um I was telling that to my sister-in-law who doesn't do any grocery shopping at all. And she looked at me this weekend. She goes, seriously? She said, I'd be in the grocery store then for hours. And I said, well, maybe. And she goes, but maybe that would be a good thing because your brother never brings home what I want him to bring home for me. I said, well, then wouldn't this be great? It's your solitude getting away from him. You go grocery shopping, you look at things, you find the things that really, you know, make you feel good. And I'm realizing that now when I do grocery shop, I am finding things, I'm not buying the junk that I used to buy because I'm looking at things as to, oh, what would my doctor think if I had a green pepper today? Oh, he would say that's
Mhm.
a good thing.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I can think of another game I play. So when I go to the grocery store, I'm not buying a lot as a rule, but I try to be the fastest checkout. All right, whether I'm doing a self checkout or if I'm at a cashier,
Right.
and so on. And so when I'm putting things in the basket, I'm spinning things around so the barcodes are visible. And I'm putting like things with like things. And I'm putting
Wow.
them in I mean, this sounds like a little OCD, but it's just a game. All right. And then I put them in the basket in a way like the heavy stuff would go first. So I would, the canned things, and so on. And then the more perishable things are often sit where the child seat is, so they don't get crushed they'll end up last in the thing. And I don't like to use bags, so I just tell them no bags, and then I just put them back in the basket, and then I have baskets and boxes in the car that
Yep.
I just take from the basket and put in that way, so I don't have to worry about all the totes that I'm supposed to bring into the store because I, have a cajillion of them, but I always forget to bring them in.
Right.
But then I like to say to the cashier, I'm going to be your fastest checkout today. And they have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about, but I know what I'm talking about. And it goes so quickly. I know that people behind me generally appreciate it and always have my money ready, that kind of a thing. So you might try that on.
I like that
Even
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've tried organizing my cart. In fact, sometimes I'll take in my reusable bags and line them up in the cart
Hmm.
and, put all the canned foods in one and
Yeah.
whatever.
Hmm.
Um, but the problem I have, unless I'm doing self-checkout, okay, my stuff never gets in the right bags. And
Right. It's
you
your
go
system
home.
isn't their system, right?
Yeah. And my husband laughs at me. He'll say, please stop using self-checkout because somebody is losing a job because you're doing that. And my comment is they might be, but at the same time, there's only one person, you know, checking people out. So, hey, I'm going to do it myself. But
Right. Well, that's why they offer so many. And I just thought of another game. So when I'm at the grocery store, I will always pick a cart from pretty far away and bring that in. And then when I'm done, I take it from the cart, put it into the things that I have in the car. It's easier for me to carry those and then lots of bags and then have lots
right,
of bags hanging out and so on, whether they're the totes that I always forget to, bring into the store. Um, and I will then take the cart back. And yes, I think about I may be undermining somebody's job and so on, but I also think of it, particularly in the cold weather, as maybe a gift for them. But it's a way for me to get extra steps in. And I have that on my phone in terms of how many steps I'm getting in
right.
a day. So it's checking a lot of boxes for me and so on. So all
Hey,
right. So, if people are listening, you might be thinking about how you can incorporate some more so-called forcing functions. Maybe we can convert that into opportunities to make it fun, to make games of these things and be exercise some more creativity and it actually more, favorable energy while we're doing these things that may have been perceived as a drag on our energy and so on. So what do you
sounds
think?
wonderful. I think that's a great idea. And this week I have a lot of things I have to do that I normally am not excited about doing. So
Hmm.
I'm going to try to turn them at least into some sort of a game.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and like when I go to the doctor tomorrow, park is far away from his door. So when I walk in,
Yeah,
I
exactly, exactly.
automatically say, hey, I just took 5 steps rather than two.
Right, exactly, exactly. And it just, why not just build it in? And it can be fun. And then, journalize it and see what we're learning from it. So
Well, this is
who
great.
knew that forcing could be fun?
That's right. Well, thank you so much, Candace, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Take
All
care now.
right, see you then. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.